Welcome to Seniors Alive. This program has interviews with people who are working with seniors who want to stay healthy and positive into their later years, and also sometimes features seniors who are vital, active in their later years. But today I'm interviewing Robin Wright Mallory, who is the Chief Optimal Health Officer of Heart Matters. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Judith.
Thank you so much for coming, because in our chatting before the show started, I have gained an even greater appreciation for what you're doing than I had before. And that was really a lot.
Thank you.
So what is Heart Matters?
Heart Matters is a program of coaching for optimal health and well-being. I work with successful professionals to integrate healthful behaviors into their busy schedules. We all want to feel well and be well, and yet oftentimes it seems as if there's not enough time to integrate new behaviors or to try new activities that will in fact allow us to feel better and have more energy.
And so even though I can see that, even though your name of your business is Heart Matters, you're really affecting the whole person and making changes in lifestyles that would help people prevent cancer and all sorts of things.
Correct. I have an affinity for hearts from my long-term nursing career, but the phrase heart or Heart Matters reflected an element of physical health as well as that sort of metaphoric emotional health, that heart health that can be construed as spiritual or emotional. So I like that name because it captured both.
Yes, I can see. So how did you get into this? Because I know you have a long history as an RN and working in the cardiac field.
Yes. Well, once a nurse, always a nurse, first of all. And I did have a lovely long career at Sierra Nevada Hospital, our local hospital, managing the cardiac rehab program. And it was an extremely satisfying and gratifying career. And yet there was an element of something missing for me, perhaps. I would often see clients after the fear of what they had recently experienced, having had a heart attack or bypass surgery, angioplasty, or stent. I would sometimes see that fear, which was their initial motivator to get healthy, I see that fear dissipate, and they would slowly begin to resume the very habits that had contributed to their disease state to begin with. And that challenged me. I wondered what I was missing as a health professional, what we as a hospital-based disease management program was missing. And I began to look around, and I became familiar with the field of behavioral medicine. And it fascinated me to understand that there were clinicians who were integrating an emotional health and well-being opportunity through quieting the brain that led to healthful physical behaviors. And the connection of the mind-body, which I had always heard about, and I was aware of, what happens when you quiet your brain, your blood pressure goes down, and such other measurable benefits. But when I learned more that there was a whole science dedicated to understanding why we make the decisions that we make, in spite of our in spite of our intellectual ability to understand what's best for us, it fascinated me to know that there was a way to motivate clients through this behavioral opportunity.
And so did you go for training someplace in this special new
I did.
area?
I actually went to the Harvard Mind-Body Medicine. There was an advanced training program, and I went for a week on site. It was an amazing, life-altering experience, both personally and professionally. And I began to understand more and more about the science of neuroplasticity, of changing our brain to support our best intention of being healthful. And I also at the same time realized that the current the current model of reimbursement and insurance and hospital-based programs didn't support the intimacy and the intensity of a behavior change program. And that's not in any way to be critical, but there just wasn't the room in a hospital-based program to provide what was really the integral aspects of a very effective behavior change program. Mm-hmm. So I pursued more outside learnings, and I took additional classes and did more reading. And I took a leap of faith about 2.5 years ago, and I left my lovely job, a very lucrative and very strong job. I left knowing that in the last 10 years or so of my career, I wanted to make a difference on the front end. I was no longer willing to wait for clients to come to me after having had their cardiac event mm-hmm. or after having been diagnosed with diabetes. I wanted to prevent that, and pardon me, that was a bit of my nursing hat coming in. I wanted to invite my clients to engage in preventive habits that would allow them to avoid that disease pathway.
Uh-huh. So, how did you actually go about establishing this new endeavor in Nevada County?
Yes. Well, there's been a very steep learning curve for me in terms of the business model, and that's a whole other story. So some really interesting learnings there. But I stayed home for the first couple of months, and I wrote a business plan and wrote my own business vision, and met with some other professionals to sort of get an idea of what it was like to be a solopreneur, and learn a little bit about marketing and develop my website, which is lovely. I'm very much a fan of my website.
And we need to be sure and tell people what that is in a second.
Okay. And develop all the collateral sort of PR pieces, and then I just put it out there. I started giving talks everywhere and anywhere that I could, although I'd always been a community educator here based on my hospital work. I started getting into corporate America, which was really the population I was targeting, and I was speaking at law firms and other corporations in Sacramento and even into the Bay Area as well. Uh-huh. And slowly the client base comes together, and I learned more about business and marketing, and it's
of course word of mouth as you.
That's really some of the best means of getting in front of the next potential client. When you see a friend that you hadn't seen for a while and say, "Wow, I love your energy. I really sense a shift in you, and mm-hmm. you're looking." A little bit different. What's going on? And they say, "Well, I'm working with this coach who's really got me going." So, yeah, that's the best form of advertising.
Well, let's get your website out there.
Great.
We'll say this several times on the show.
It is Heart Matters, all one word, heartmatters.pro. Pro is the domain name.
Okay. And you said to me earlier that's for professionals. It's
the domain PRO is for licensed professionals.
Right.
Yes.
So heartmatters.pro.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. And your email then would be robinmallory@heartmatters.pro.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And if I could just remind you and others that Mallory is an ERY ending. People want to spell it ORY, and then that email won't get to me. Yes. So robinmallory@heartmatters.pro.
Okay.
Yeah,
great.
Thanks.
How is what you do different from, if it is, what is called life coach?
There are a lot of life coaches that have some health element built in, because face it, to be successful in life, we need to be physically at our best as well. And there is an emotional health and well-being component that is central to being physically healthy. So it's all tied in. But because of my unique and very deep clinical experience as a nurse, it really brings a different piece to the table in terms of my expertise. When I meet with a client who may be in a pre-diabetic state, for instance, a 45-year-old professional who is 20 pounds overweight but has a family history of heart disease and is feeling a little bit less energetic than he or she used to, but their blood glucose is rising and the doctor is starting to sort of do this, that to me is an ideal client. My knowledge of diabetes and the way what we eat affects blood glucose and the kinds of exercises that will manage glucose metabolism, that piece that I have is a little little bit different, I think,
Yeah.
than someone who's doing just life coaching.
Yes, I can certainly see that.
Yeah.
Tonight I'm speaking with Robin Wright Mallory, who is the Chief Optimal Health Officer of Heart Matters. And I'm learning so much about this type of coaching, and it's so important for people. We have lots of territory to cover, I know, so I'm going to keep moving along here. So if a person comes to see you, what happens in session 1 and session 2 and so on?
It certainly is an individualized session, the way they flow. Everybody's unique. And there are some clients who have tried every trick in the book thus far. They've had personal trainers, they've been on diets, which I'm not at all in favor of. That's another whole other topic. But there are people who have had some experience with success in regards to behavior change, but that success hasn't been lasting. Everything from a Weight Watchers to some kind of group exercise, all of which are excellent background experiences. And there are some people who have been somewhat disconnected all the while in their adult life, and they suddenly get to a place of, wow, how did I get here? It's my 50th birthday coming up, for instance, and I don't like the way I feel or the way I'm looking, or it just doesn't seem like it's going as I envisioned. And so everybody's unique and different, and I definitely approach it from that perspective. But one of the basic starting points is developing the health vision. So I will sit with the client, and it may take place over 1 or 2 or even 3 sessions, depending upon what their awareness and their receptivity is to exploring. Because a health vision is not tangential. It's not tangible. Excuse me. It's not something that you can measure. It's often sort of lofty and just kind of dreamlike. And some people are not always comfortable with
Literally
that.
a vision or an image.
Exactly. So I encourage brainstorming, and the rules of brainstorming. Anything goes, and it could be something that. I want to be able to, on my 50th birthday, climb Kilimanjaro. Something huge, or it
Literally
could be
lofty.
Yes. Or it could be somebody who is 60 and has been incredibly successful in their careers and has a happy marriage, but finds when the grandkids come over on Sundays, they poop out at 1 o'clock and aren't appreciative of that. So their health vision may include, I want to be able to take my grandkids to Disneyland and not worry about having to take a nap during the day. So we brainstorm on all the possibilities out there. And when we exhaust all those possibilities, we do some prioritization, especially if there's 10 or 12, but often there's kind of some central points that we can draw from. And then we work on bringing it into a place of making the goals and creating a measurable goal. So if it's climbing Kilimanjaro, for instance, which I love that one actually because it is in fact rather grandiose, then that's terrific, Judith. What's going to have to happen so that within 3 months you're at a place where you can begin training for Kilimanjaro? And you might say to me, and this would be an example, of course, because look at you're the picture of health, but you might say, well, I'm going to have to lose weight, and I'm going to have to get in training, and I'm probably going to have to eat better. So you're going to come up with some of these ideas on your own that are beginning to take the shape of a goal. And you might say, I'm going to eat better within the next 3 months. And I'll come back to say, wow, I love that. I love your enthusiasm. I really hear a commitment in your voice. And what's that going to look like tomorrow so that you can begin getting towards this place in about 3 months that's going to show you that you've done some work and that you've been successful.
Yeah, specific behavioral terms that people can recognize the achievement
and
of.
as we continue to play with that, we'll come up with, usually within the first or likely the second session, some measurable goals at 3 months. So you might say, I'm going to commit to losing 10 pounds in 3 months. And by the end of 3 months, I will be exercising 2 days a week on a dedicated schedule. And that's a big step for you or someone who's not inviting any of those behaviors in currently. So we'll hold those as the measurable place in 3 months. And I'm going to encourage you to not get on the scale between now and that 90-day period, and to not even think about this in terms of weight, but we know that at the end of our process in 3 months, that there'll be something that we're going to be measuring. And if I may clarify, an adult takes about a year, based on the science, it takes about a year to incorporate long-term behaviors that will be sustainable for a lifetime. Does that make sense?
Wow.
I've read all kinds of other little bits and pieces. We love sound bites, and we want to think that we're fixed up, within a course of the first 3 months. You're going to be pleasantly introduced to successes in that first 3-month period, but it will almost certainly take an additional quarter or 3-month period, and many of my clients are into their third or even fourth quarter, which doesn't mean they're not doing fantastically well, but to really reinforce those long-term behavior changes, we look at the coaching process as sort of an ongoing process.
Yeah, and after let's say they're with you for a year and the behavior patterns become fairly well established, do they come to see you on a periodic basis for a brush up?
Exactly. And I wouldn't call it brush up, but I very much speak in positive terms. So it's a chance to reconnect and explore successes and look at if or what barriers or challenges may have come up. So we definitely stay in touch, for monthly check-ins, or sometimes I go every 6 weeks. But I think that's a big part of it as well. There's definitely something about the accountability of working with a professional, a coach who is non-judgmental, who is detached emotionally, but very much in part of the supportive process. There's really a nice element of accountability that the clients appreciate.
Now, at the very beginning of the program, you mentioned about the quieting of the mind part of this. So say more about that.
What we know based on adult behavior change principles is that our brains are, especially now in our society with again, the little sound bites we get and all the digital components we have in our lives and such, we know that our brains are in a state of overstimulation most of the time, and this permeates our culture. And in that state of excitability, it need not be perceived as negative, but just in that state of arousal, which we are often in most of the time, the brain is less receptive to new concepts and new ideas, i.e. new behaviors. So you may walk out of a session feeling super powerful about these small step goals you're going to engage in starting tomorrow, but without the element of quieting the brain, it's sort of like a deflection will occur in your brain, because the brain perceives a new behavior as being somewhat stressful. The brain then goes into that fight or flight response, and it pushes that new behavior away. So part of the key piece there is to make the goals very small step and perceived as pleasurable and fun, but the balance there is quieting the brain. When we change our brain chemistry, we literally make room in the brain for new ideas. And as you mentioned, you're familiar with neuroplasticity, which I love, not only that term, I love that term, it sounds so great, but the concept of literally changing your brain patterns and creating new decision-making pathways. That means that anything is possible. When you recognize that you can change your brain, anything is possible. And that's so exciting.
Yeah. There's a whole book out by Sharon Begley. Have you seen that?
I've read the book.
Train the brain, change your mind, or vice versa.
And locally, Pat Lynn Kyle, as you may be familiar with her, she's a brilliant woman who brings in a very deep level of quieting the brain for specifically behavior change. And I'm not recalling the name of her book right now. I've taken her in-depth classes. She's wonderful. She's local. You might consider her
more about
as
that.
a speaker.
I didn't realize that that we had that resource locally.
She's terrific. Yeah.
So we have the sort of the outline of the process, and I know you said some of your clients are long distance. So how do you get together with them?
I am a people person. I not only cherish eye contact, but I like touch, and that's not to mean that I offer massage as well, but I really like that sense of connection, and especially when you're cultivating a new relationship in coaching, I feel it's essential to have an in-person session. So unless a client is in Timbuktu, I will do my best effort to make the first session or two in person. I have an office here, or I travel to either Sacramento Bay Area, whatever the case may be. So to establish that sense of trust, I think, is very important. But the follow-up sessions, typically 3 out of the 4 monthly sessions, will be done via a phone call, or my preference would be over Skype. Skype is one of the many computer technologies with which you can do a visual encounter with somebody, whether it's your grandkids for fun or whether it's a client for business. You can both turn your computers on at the same time. You open up the free Skype program, and again, there are other programs out there. And you literally have as intimate as it can get with the screen in between you. You have an in-person session where you're able to make visual eye contact, and I feel that there's a deeper element of connection with that Skype opportunity.
It's wonderful, isn't it? And Skype is free.
It is.
I'm assuming the others are too, but anyway.
I'm not aware of all the technical details, but I know Skype is free. I use it a lot. But even still, with my distance clients, I do see them once a month in person. Again, I think it's so important to maintain a sense of trust and intimacy in the relationship.
Yeah. Let's say your email again. Why don't you say it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Robin Mallory at heartmatters.pro.
And Mallory is spelled with?
ERY. And my website is heartmatters.pro.
Yes. Wonderful.
Thanks.
And we were talking about how people in Nevada County might take some of your tips and put them into practice, especially if they're part of, say, a community of faith, where there would be some buddy system possibilities and accountability possibilities. And you also talked about your willingness and great interest in talking to groups.
Sure.
So let's just sort of lay out how you might be of use to our community.
Well, I'm known for being a lover of yakking, and I have presented in this community for 20 plus years, so I will gladly speak at any group opportunity. So that's a way of kind of an intro. As I mentioned to you, on my website, I have very many articles that I have written that talk about creating a health vision and sort of go through that process. Also talk about implementing other aspects of behavioral medicine. I've done lots of relaxations and quieting and writing about quieting on my website as well. I have downloadable audios that people can use for relaxation opportunity. So there's ways for people to engage without actually having to engage as a client. And I liked your example of a faith-based community, but there are also other communities within our own community of getting together in a buddy system and cultivating a practice of daily walks or a couple times a week, or group potlucks, where we're looking at real foods and nourishing foods that can be done more affordably, but also in concert with, best intention for health. So there's a lot of group opportunity here, and there also are group coaching sessions. That's something we didn't talk about. That is more affordable than one-on-one sessions, and there's a different level of commitment, but there's definitely a heightened accountability when you have 2 or 3 of your neighbors or friends that are part of a small group and can move forward in the behavior change process in that manner.
Yeah. Well, I love the whole idea of a community group, such as, I'm just thinking about the church to which I belong, being able to have a speech by you, let's say, and then, week after week meet and come up with a vision for their own health. And since we're especially oriented around seniors here, I'm thinking of senior groups, and to mutually support each other in the exploration of the vision and setting their goals, and for both exercise and nutrition, and then practice together the quieting of the mind. And like you said, the Roll and Stroll program that we've been doing here for the Falls Prevention Coalition is a good example of a weekly buddy system kind of group approach to exercise. And so you could have that, and you could have the potlucks could include healthy food,
Should include healthy food, yes.
Well, I keep getting little signals that our time is starting to run out, and I want to go over just one more time, Robin, the website and the email, since we haven't had it on the screen all the way through.
Sure.
So,
my website is heartmatters.pro. I do put out every other month a newsletter that has all kinds of updated articles and information along the same lines of what we've been speaking about today. So on my website, in the upper right-hand corner, every page is an opt-in box, so people who cruise the internet and are familiar with that can let me know they're wanting to receive my newsletter. And my email directly is robinmallory@heartmatters.pro.
Okay. So as we're winding up here, Robin, I do want to let you and the audience, the listening audience, know that this program airs not only in Nevada County, but also in the Bay Area. Our sister station in community media through Mid-Peninsula Community Center receives a DVD and airs this program. So there may well be people in the Bay Area who see this
Fabulous.
on Channel 30 out of Palo Alto and would be interested. So that's another reason it's good to keep saying your website.
Sure, thank you. I wasn't aware of that. I appreciate that.
Yes. And so what would you say you find the most satisfying, throwing a little trick question at you here, the most satisfying about this new endeavor of yours?
When I am working with a client and I see the perceived and long-held beliefs that certain success was not achievable because their lives were too busy, or they just couldn't do it, or they had tried before and weren't able to get to a place that satisfied them health-wise. And I see those barriers falling away as they become more and more engaged with the possibilities. And as we move along that small step continuum, the successes become more and more familiar to them, which encourages them to go deeper. It's very gratifying for me to see those clients moving in that positive direction and taking on that responsibility of being healthy and also savoring the benefits of being healthy, noticing.
I can imagine. Yeah. How wonderful. Well, we are going to say goodnight for today, and so appreciate you who have joined us on the program. I want to thank Gail Woodman, Paul Minicucci, and Sam Mills for being a strong, though small, crew today. We want to thank Nevada County Television, and we want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you.
Here at the library, people ask a lot of questions.
I'm trying to get a job, but I don't write very well. Can the library help me?
The Read Up department can help. They teach adults how to read and write. Check out the kiosk in the lobby for more information.
Hi, I'm looking for bedtime books for my boys. Benny is 4 and Tom is 12, and Benny likes choo-choo trains and Tom likes zombies.
Choo-choo trains and zombies.
Oh, do you have any activities for my boys?
Sure.